What's up, everyone, and welcome to ClearTalk. So with the end of the ceasefire looming for tomorrow, the deadline of it for any kind of talks, and the fact that we were supposed to talk today, and it's not looking like we're going to. There's a lot of things, up in the air about that, and waiting to see what's going to happen there. But I want to do a little something different for a video today. I come across the video of Brazil's president, Lula, and he gave a pretty riveting speech at the democracy, what was it called again? Defense of Democracy Conference in Spain. So I wanted to view this, all right, and share it with you if you have not seen it. I think it's an very well spoken and speaks to what the type of mentality a leader, I think, really needs to have. And I don't know everything about this guy, to be honest, but what I'm hearing here, it was very well put. And so I wanted to share it with you. So we're going to do in this video. So thank you very much for joining me here. Welcome to ClearTalk. If you're brand new, check out the rest of the channel. If you would like, consider subscribing, like, share, comment, all the good stuff to get more videos in front of more people. It's free for you, helps out the channel tremendously. If you would like to check out videos from my other channels, you have JMDPLAY there, puzzle, and regular JMD. I usually say that one first. If you like what you see over there, consider subscribing to those as well. Free for you, helps out those channels tremendously. If you'd like to go further, there's Patreon there, $2. I almost said $3 because it used to be $3. It's now $2. $2, you can support any of the channels that you would like to help grow those channels, to help grow Patreon, help grow JMD Nation, and contribute how you would like to that growth. And keep this going. Keep the JMD Nation going. Keep it growing. That would be amazing. Any contribution you give is very much appreciated. And I thank you very, very much. And if you're returning, you're freaking amazing. You are amazing. I'll tell you that every time. Welcome back. Keep coming back. You're what makes JMD Nation. All right, so let's swap over here. And take a listen to what Mr. Lula here says.
I brought a written speech about my experience in Brazil, but I think this meeting has been so rich that I needed to clarify two things. First, that we are not here trying to create an international. We have already had 5 internationals that did not solve our problems. And secondly, I am not here to discuss democracy in my country. Democracy in each of our countries is our responsibility, the cultural responsibility of our people. We will figure it out, and the people of each country will find their own way of practicing democracy. But what strongly drives us is the issue of multilateralism and relations between nations. That is what concerns me, because this issue we are discussing here could be discussed at the United Nations. And why is it not being discussed at the United Nations?
True.
Because today, the United Nations does not represent what it was created for. The 5 members of the Security Council, the permanent members, which when the Security Council was created were meant to guarantee peace in the world after World War II, have become the lords of war.
Exactly.
That is the concrete reality. And the UN does not have... Look, the UN that had the strength to create the State of Israel, it does not even have the strength to maintain the Palestinian state.
Exactly.
In fact, it does not have the strength to maintain the demarcated lands that were defined by the UN itself. So the democracy we are going to discuss here among heads of state is whether the world will continue as it is or whether we will try to change it. And for us to change it, We have to have a daily international discussion. No president of any country in the world, no matter how big, has the right to impose rules on other countries.
Exactly.
None. And the 5 members of the UN Security Council must come together to change their behavior. We cannot wake up every morning and go to sleep every night with the Twitter of a president threatening the world.
Hello.
Making war.
Hello.
In other words, all of them make decisions without consulting the UN, of which they are members and part of the council.
Hello.
Who did Bush ask before invading Iraq? No one.
Hello.
Where are the chemical weapons that were in Iraq? There were none.
None.
Who did France and England ask before invading Libya? No one.
Nope.
What harm had Gaddafi done at that time? None. Who did Putin ask before invading Ukraine? No one. Who did Trump ask before invading Iran? No one. Who did Israel ask before invading the Gaza Strip as it did? No one. Who asked before invading Venezuela? No one. In other words, these are unilateral decisions that do not respect the form in which these people participate. And if we do not challenge this, nothing will change.
It does. It needs to be challenged. It needs to be challenged all over. He's right. Nobody, no nation, no matter how large, and I'm even talking about the United States, has the right to tell what another nation should or shouldn't do. We just don't. Every nation is a sovereign nation. They have their own laws and rules, and they establish them their own way. They have their own elections. Now, you can dislike the way a nation works. You can dislike the way a government runs its elections, but it's the way it's set up. You can even think that the election is rigged or wrong or was whatever, but that is within that country to handle. Period. And he's right. We can't sit here waking up every day wondering whether or not some leader has tweeted, their dislike for a nation and threatening to go to war with them. It's just childish. It's ridiculous. And it needs to change. He's right. The UN Security Council is made up of a bunch of nations that just want to go to war with everybody. And I think at some point he even speaks about how, the fact that any of them have there's a one vote veto that can stop any kind of, thing from passing. And it's absolutely ridiculous. I've talked about this before myself. How there's absolutely no reason for one nation to be able to completely stop some sort of UN charter, UN security resolution or something, because they don't like it. And that's been the problem. One nation, one veto. And it could be any nation that doesn't disagree, that doesn't agree with it, can veto. And let's go back to the drawing board. It has, no, absolutely not. That's ridiculous. So, and we've seen the United Nations has not been able to do anything when it comes to Gaza, when it comes to a genocide literally being placed on a group of people for the past 3-4 years. They haven't been able to do anything. It can condemn all the fuck they want to, but unless there's some sort of actual legal action that can be held up in some sort of way, then it's just pointless. And it's not even just the UN. It's just every freaking nation that doesn't have the backbone to actually apply the type of pressure needed to stop someone like Israel. And it doesn't help that the United States, maintains our, grip on them either, and just goes along because of foolish fucking leaders that we have and continue to put in Washington, and that's on us. Continue.
Nothing will change, and the tendency is to get worse. I think this extremism, this lack of respect for the UN Charter, this lack of respect for harmony between countries and nations is very dangerous in the world we are living in. Today we have more armed conflicts. It is the moment in history with the highest number of armed conflicts since World War II.
Yep.
And the UN Security Council does not meet. Its main members do not attend. It is always ambassador-level representation, and when you approve something, there is the right to veto, and it does not work because anyone can veto. And how many years have we been trying to propose changes to the number of countries participating in the UN? Where is African representation? On the African continent alone, we have 3 countries with more than 120 million inhabitants. Where is the participation of Mexico and Brazil, of Argentina, of Colombia? Where is the participation of India? So many important countries, Germany, Japan, Indonesia, all of these countries could participate. And why does it not change? When the subprime crisis happened in 2008, we created the G20.
And he's referring to the Security Council. Because there's only like, is it 11 or 14 members of the Security Council? But only 5 of which actually have veto power. And any of those 5, again, only one needs to veto to end a security resolution. And that's what he's speaking of. Why has the Security Council been expanded to include more countries? And then also, again, the rules around the vetoing, everything else needs to be changed. And that's what he's speaking about. That why are these countries not being added and involved in Security Council? Matter of fact, the entire fucking UN, in my opinion, there should be no Security Council. The entire UN should be the Security Council. It's just ridiculous. But whatever.
Why? To try to solve the crisis. We tried to change the IMF. We tried to change the World Bank. Nothing changed. So I think this is the democracy that we heads of state need to discuss. And we need to demand that the UN Secretary General call extraordinary meetings, even without a request from a permanent member of the Security Council. The UN cannot remain silent and watch what is happening in the world. Trump invades Iran and raises the price of beans in Brazil, raises the price of corn in Mexico, raises gasoline prices in another country. In other words, it is the poor who will pay for the irresponsibility of wars that nobody wants.
It always
This
has.
is the democratic behavior that countries must have, and we need to discuss it very seriously. The world does not need wars. We have more than 760 million people going hungry. We have millions of illiterate people. We have millions of people without electricity. We had millions of people who died because there was no vaccine against COVID-19. And these platforms, this is serious, and this must also be decided at the UN. Regulating digital platforms with democratic rules is a global issue, not an issue of one country or another. In Brazil, we are trying to do our part, because the naked truth is that lies have defeated the truth. That is the concrete fact. In other words, to lie, you do not have to explain. To justify yourself, you have to explain, and often you cannot. So this is a challenge for us, heads of state, because we cannot imagine doing things without institutions to make them work. Otherwise, when Spain has a progressive president, Spain participates. When Brazil has a progressive president, it participates. And when it does not, it no longer participates. UNSC, which was the most democratic thing created in South America at the beginning of this century, the most important thing, the greatest moment of social progress in South America, the greatest moment of democratic progress, ended. It ended. CELAC is ending because we do not have solid institutions to lead. In other words, when the president changes, the institution changes. So it is important that we learn a very serious lesson. The UN is a very valuable instrument if it works. And it needs to work to ensure that, for example, platforms are regulated worldwide, for everyone. A president of one country cannot interfere in another country's election, ask for votes for another. Where is electoral sovereignty? Where is territorial sovereignty? This is the issue we need to discuss and make ourselves heard. And where is the arena we must fight in? It is within the United Nations. It is within the United Nations. I think that is what we should try to include in the document here, Boris, a general call to discuss what is happening in the world today. With the destruction of multilateralism, will the force of the warlord prevail? That is, someone who thinks that because they have more money, because they have more technology, they can do anything. That is not possible. I am concerned about Cuba, very concerned about Cuba. Cuba has problems, but it is a problem for Cubans. It is not a problem for Lula, Claudia, or Trump. It is a problem of the Cuban people. Stop this damn blockade on Cuba and let Cubans live their lives.
Exactly.
It is not possible that we remain silent about this. And I can tell you, comrades, that in my Brazil, we have just defeated extremism. We have a former president imprisoned, sentenced to 27 years in prison. We have 4 four-star generals imprisoned because they tried to carry out a coup. But extremism has not ended. It remains alive and will contest elections again. But that is our problem.
All over the world.
That is a problem for the Brazilian people. We deal with it with our own strength and our own tools. But the problem of the world, the problem of multilateralism, is not an internal problem of Mexico, not an internal problem of Spain. It is a problem of the United Nations. It is respect for the UN Charter. It is asking all of you who are members to read the UN Charter. Read the decision by which the Security Council was created with permanent command. Read it. And if you do not feel you are fulfilling your duty, then resign. Or let us change the UN Charter once and for all. What cannot continue is the world spending $2.7 trillion on weapons while people go hungry.
Hello. Hello.
What cannot continue is us talking about decarbonizing the planet while bombs are being dropped every single day in every possible country.
Hello.
What cannot continue is Lebanon being a victim of every war that Israel fights,
Hello.
where the last shot always ends up in Lebanon. Where are we going to make decisions? Where are we going to stop? Meanwhile, Claudia, look at this absurdity. While Cuba is criticized because it is a socialist country, Haiti is right next to Cuba, with people starving, gangs taking over the country, and nobody says anything about Haiti. The Haitian people also deserve respect, deserve to survive, and nobody speaks.
It doesn't matter, especially when it comes to the United States. It doesn't matter whether or not a leader is creating some sort of humanitarian issue, or whether or not they taking rights from people here or there, whatever. It's whether or not they play nice with us, whether they will allow us to have resources from them or not. And if they don't allow us to have those resources, if they're not playing nice with us because we've enforced something in history or whatever, or we've tried to take them over before and they are like fuck off or whatever the case, Then all of a sudden, oh, we have a problem. When we start pointing out, oh, well, they take away rights for this, or they change the rights for that, or they, it's a humanitarian issue there, blah blah blah. Their leaders, so and so and so, or socialism, or communism, or blah blah blah. It's always something like that. But yet we play nice and play footsie with all kinds of leaders across the world that do the same fucking things, but just because they allow us to enrich ourselves through their countries and don't tell us to fuck off. We're good with that. We're good with quote unquote terrorism or quote unquote undemocratic rulings or whatever, authoritarianism or dictators, as long as they're playing nice with us in a way of like letting us have resources, letting us, enrich ourselves through their country. Nobody cares otherwise. Nobody cares about they don't care about the countries that are having difficulties, that are having crisis of trying to of development, health crisis, economic crisis, or whatever. They don't care. Leadership doesn't. And that's the problem. We only care when we're trying to enrich, and it's just the greed. It's the greed of leadership, especially, like I said, from the United States standpoint. It's the only reason why we've had any problem that we've had with nations, any nation here lately. Venezuela, Cuba, Iran, they're all nations that we have tried to manipulate and try to steal from previously, and they told us to fuck off. And they became an eternal enemy of us. And everybody is that way until they finally give in. We go to war with them, or whatever the case, or we put such strict economical sanctions on them, bleeding their economy dry, in creating chaos within its citizenry, that they push back, and they're you've wound up with a failed state or close to failed state, and then we act like, oh, we need to go in and save them. We create a problem just to save it. And the same thing extends through our axis with Israel. Same thing. They create problems all around the Middle East and then pretend like they need to save the world by taking out that problem. Terrorist group after terrorist group after terrorist group. Us, along with Israel and a few others, have backed, directly or indirectly, all kinds of quote unquote terrorist groups when they were convenient for us in trying to control or overthrow a leadership that we didn't want in power, or that wasn't working well with us, or even more directly was working more with Russia or China. That was our whole point in taking the removal of Gaddafi in Libya, and we aided in that. That was the same thing when it comes to the Assad in Syria. Same thing when it comes to Iran. All these countries, there's several countries. The next one has already been talked about in Israel is Turkey. Turkey is going to be the next one that Israel tries to go at after they've accomplished what they think they're going to accomplish in Iran. They did the same thing with Hamas in Gaza. Israel quite literally helped create Hamas. And then afterwards, deemed them a terrorist group and a reason to eventually create a genocide. It's over and over and over again, over and over and over again. Whether it's we're in all those nations, we're talking about Syria, previously in Iraq, Afghanistan. This is just a repeated cycle over and over again, and it's all for, well, for either, again, controlling resources for some, and for others it's power.
So I think, dear Pedro Sanchez, dear comrades, my gratitude for your participation. What bothers me is the return of those who think they are the owners of the world. We do not want emperors anymore. We do not want rulers who dominate everything. Poor people deserve a chance to live in a democratic system, not just to vote, but to control their vote, to have the freedom to choose people. It is not possible. Digital networks do not allow this. And companies, platforms, unlike politicians who have identifiable owners, their owners do not appear. You do not need to know them.
Mm-hmm.
They do not pay taxes in our countries. So this is very serious.
Shareholders all
You
over
have
the place.
left the presidency of Chile, Boric, but you have not left the cause of democracy. We will need to find a way for you to continue in this struggle, because you are very young, you have a long time ahead, and we need to unite everyone in the world who wants to build democracy. Democracy within each country depends on each country, but democracy of the United Nations depends on all of us. Strengthening multilateralism depends on us. It depends on us believing we are as important as those who oppose us. Silence is not correct. I am astonished by the silence of people, as if they are trying to hide from something they do not want to talk about. We have to speak every day. Brazil does not want war with the United States. I do not want war with China. I do not want war with Russia. I do not want war with Uruguay. I want peace. I want my country to develop. I want my people to live well, to be able to study. That is what you all want. I do not want war with Albania. I do not want war with Bolivia. But we have to say this every day, because every day we are threatened and there is no international forum to discuss it. So I want to say to you, comrades, that I am in this struggle because individually none of us has a solution. And another important point.
And that's the thing. Most regular people don't want war. They just want to live. They just want to exist and exist with, the comfort of knowing that, they have what they need to survive and to live. I mean, it's the greedy leaderships and power hungry, individuals, CEOs and everything else that are constantly trying to take us to war with everybody, are constantly like, why can't we just live in peace? Why can't we all be working together to progress the entire world forward? Stop with all the sanctions. Stop with all trying to destroy, economies and destroy countries and destroy leaderships. Just let every nation have their own sovereignty and choose who they want, and we allow everybody to prosper if they can prosper. And if they're not prospering, then that's on them, and they'll fall apart, and a new person or new, people or whatever will come into power to try to go forward. If we're not allowing, we create these labels and we say and create opinions and propaganda around whether a label is whatever, moral or correct or evil or good or what. Like it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. And then we go to war over it. It's just stupid. It's all stupid. Just let nations be. And it's all. And if every nation would try to uplift that nation, and everybody is uplifting everybody trying to give everybody the best foot forward. The kind of stuff that should be going on here in the United States, richest fucking nation in the world, and yet we've got how many homeless people? How many people that are starving? I mean, we've quite literally created a welfare state to try to take care of it. But it's because our leadership won't make they're more concerned with going to war and having a massive ass military complex, funding it to no end. Never have a problem with where's the money, how are we going to pay for it? Instead of taking care of their own people. Making sure that we have livable wages, make sure we have good health care, make sure we have access to, education and everything else. I mean, have good, infrastructures, clean water, affordable energy, like all these things. No, they don't care. They don't care. They give us the bare minimal. Everybody struggles so that they can continue going to war, continue to power grab, continue to extort resources from everywhere they can. Resources that are no longer needed. It's at this point it's ridiculous.
In Brazil, we are discussing ending the 6 days on, 1 day off work schedule because it seems that technological gains and increased productivity only benefit the rich, not the poor. These are all issues we must put on the table so that we can restore credibility to democracy. Democracy is losing credibility because often it has not delivered answers to society.
Very good, very good. Very good speech. And it seemed completely genuine and from a good place. The kind of speech, the kind of words that you would like to hear from any leader. I don't want to go to war with anybody. I want us to all get along. I just want my people to be able to prosper and be, have everything they need. I want us to, work. I want to give democracy a good name. Not the name that these tweeters in the middle of the night are diminishing it for, or diminishing it with. It's not complicated. It's really not complicated. And we're seeing more and more of this, like as he's speaking, progressive leaders all across the South, because of this type of mentality that is shifted down in South America, even I think even in like Africa and stuff like that too. But it's a whole different shift of thought. That's what's happened in Mexico, again, and all down through South America. Multiple leaders are changing. Because people are sick and tired of the corruption. People are sick and tired of not being able to exist without being taken advantage of. We want leaders that actually promise things and actually go through with it. That are actually there to benefit and help out the country. it's kind of the same like idea as even like here, America first, but like not to the extremity that MAGA makes it. It's just, people first. Making sure that people are taken care of. And our leadership has not been doing that for a long time. I mean, there have been little things, leaders in place here and there that have done little bit things here and there to curb, the problems a little bit. But as far as actually providing solutions, like long-lasting, substantive solutions, no. It's just not happening. They're more concerned with going to war. They're more concerned with having a super mighty military and enriching themselves than they are taking care of people. They're more concerned with allowing another country to invoke its imperialist ambitions as our own, and murderous tactics to move those ambitions along. Anyway, that was a great. I think that was a great speech. It was a great speech. I'm quite envious of Brazil right now, and I hope that they, have success in it. Along with other countries, Mexico with Claudia is successful. And I wish for continued success with any nation that decides to actually move in that direction. I wish we could, and get away from these greedy war hawk neocon bastards that keep getting in power. Or in Trump's case, just a complete narcissist criminal trying to protect himself from prison. Anyways. And he's right. The UN needs to step up. The UN needs to change, because it is completely ineffective at this point. The original idea of the UN has been completely washed out. The original idea of the Security Council is completely transformed and changed into just a bunch of boss man leaders puffing their chests and swinging their dicks and see who's biggest. I mean, it's and there's no, continuity in any kind of actual like overall security of the world like decisions, and it all being on one page because they all have their ambitions. And again, it only takes one of them to disagree with any kind of anything, and they're completely pointless. As like you said, there shouldn't be just a handful of countries just because they're large and have a lot of money and resources and everything, be able to control and dictate how the entire world should work and run. That's the problem. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me. And until next time, peace. ClearTalk. I'm out.